Hello fellow bookworms! So there's this book called Rise of One by Dixon Reuel. This person, who is an indie author, is about zombies who are referred to as brutes in this book, vampires but not as you know them, dysfunctional found family and sort of not really romance. It's complicated, all the tropes are upended in this book, but I'll tell you all about that in a minute. First I want to talk about stripy vampires, because of course I do. Have you heard of bsky lines? You possibly have. They were floating around on the webosphere a lot a bit back, to the point where even I saw it. Allow me to get the tiniest bit nerdy here. It is relevant, I promise. Bsky lines are the stripes that humans have. Yes, you heard that right, humans have stripes. They are, of course, invisible. There was a thing going around that said you could see them under UV light, but I'm not sure where that comes from, because the scientific papers that mention it at all do so to say that it is a persistent rumour. Also, if you heard the rumour saying that these stripes can be seen by cats, also not true, which takes away the fun notion that our cats can see us as tall, upright tigers. Anyway, the way these stripes have been discovered are by studying various skin conditions that tend to follow these lines, including one that alters the pigmentation of the skin. Not nearly as fun as UV glowing cat seeing stripes, but still, still pretty cool. But it is true that the current line of thought is that these stripes are formed by cell migration as you develop in the womb. Back to the book. Dixon Reuel saw the bsky and UV aspect and ran with it to produce a fantastically unique type of vampire which completely blew away. Blew away? Blew me away. Okay, get this. Vampires who don't turn to dust when they encounter the sun, but they are light sensitive. Sunlight is painful to them, and when exposed, their bsky lines reveal themselves. Now I'll tell you about the book. First off, I'm going to say right off the bat, and this isn't me having a dig, it's just that I don't tend to read a lot of vamp, zombie or romance books. I've read some and will read them again, but they're not my main course in reading, so although I have some knowledge about the general things that happens in these types of stories, I don't have a solid basis of all the tropes and beats that this book covers or overturns. And because this book is sort of all three, I couldn't not try it, especially with this premise. Okay, moving on, there has been a plague. Not sure how it started, but it's ended badly, and it's left a slew of brutes that have basically done what zombies do and caused humanity to hide away in little pockets where they can. And one of these pockets are a small coven of 3 vampires and 1 human, holed up all cozy like in a house that they keep hidden with the powers of boundary raising that the unofficial official head of the coven has. They are self-sustaining, needing only enough food and water to keep their human, Cypriot, a petulant plant-obsessed human who has been with the coven for a very long time. And he, Cypriot, is very protective of his coven, or at least himself. And he happens to be the lover of the head of the coven. They have no idea about whether other vampires exist, and they know they must have once, but whether they survived the brute uprising is unknown. They would dearly love to find another, because they don't know much about vampires or their abilities, because they have no memories of their mortal lives or when they were turned. Rise, the main character, has found his power by accident, but he doesn't know the limitations of it, and the others don't seem to have the same talents. We join this coven as their hoarded supplies of luxuries are starting to run out, and the worry is setting in that they only have 1 human to feed them in a world that they may not be able to find any more uncontaminated humans in. So Rise takes it upon himself to go out into the big wide world to bring back somebody to help supplement their human feeding. Which of course runs the risk of bringing infection back to the 1 human they do have, and on top of that, if he dies, it loses the rest of the coven the protection of Rise's boundary building, which has to be renewed daily. Also, running the risk of bringing them to the attention of vampire hunters who have seemingly survived and who would take out Rise's coven if they discovered it. None of the rest of the coven is down with Rise's foray, and so he does it in secret, and this is basically Rise's character. He decides what's best, and he does it regardless of what the rest of the coven thinks. And from this there stems a lot of drama, especially from his lover Cypriot, who, although he is understandably upset at Rise's risk, during the course of the story, and especially as seen through the eyes of Rise, is fundamentally unlikable. He constantly sulks and pouts, and not that Rise is the perfect partner either, and often gives real reasons for Cypriot to be upset. This is not a healthy relationship at all, and it's not written as if it's supposed to be. I spent the entire book hoping that Cypriot would be ousted, but everybody else seemed fond of him, so I guess familiarity will do that to you. That, or he saved his pouting tantrums for Rise and the others who don't get the brunt of it. But this book, y'all, has just delicious descriptions. Listen to this. This is talking about a zombie sighting. Slippery masses and stenches, foul and grappling things poured into the river from beneath the arches of the bridge, like a dollop of bees dropping from the belly of a hive. Gruesomely delicious, right? Also, the way that the house they live in is described, it just feels like an extra character because it's got all the smells of baking, plant life, and it's filled with these little idiosyncrasies that an old house has, like wonky doors and squeaky floors and things like that. The characters are really well written too, and they too have their own kind of tics and quirks and hobbies that they like to sort of absorb themselves in to keep themselves occupied whilst the rest of the world falls apart. And then there are the concepts like the bsky lines and what does happen to a vampire when they've been bitten by a zombie. I can't say more on that because, spoilers, but it's awesome. Anyway, the whole story is told from Rise's point of view, and I don't like Rise, but then I'm not supposed to, I don't think. I do see where he's coming from though, and I think this is where the beauty of this particular perspective comes from, because any other point of view, he would just be an arrogant git. From his perspective, it at least gives context to his gittishness. And here's where we get to the bad parts of the book. There are admittedly times when the point of view falls down for me, especially in the beginning when Rise is uncertain and his mind flicks back and forth between what he's decided to do, and it's always he's decided, unless it's he's decided different. That's not where my beef is though. He has a problem with unclear motives, which at least in the beginning seem to change dependent on what the plot needs, i.e. the need to go out. He also keeps secrets from his coven, and he is sneaky about certain things so he can try to get his own way unchallenged. And I think this is his most annoying trait: he doesn't learn. He listens, but then it's like the conversation never happened for him and he just does what he wants anyway. These are all valid character flaws, but I felt like it needed a little more, just a little more smoothing out. Rise also can't seem to focus on how he sees his partner. He doesn't seem to like him most of the time, and quite frankly that's understandable, but how they came to be together at all isn't covered in this book, so I don't see the draw, apart from the fact that they've been together a long time. But Rise keeps going back to his Cypriot. Again, even the author has stated this is not a healthy relationship, and there is another man that comes along in the book that I think Rise would do better with, but I don't think Rise would be good for this person. It's not a healthy relationship, but I don't have to like it. This is not an action-packed book, which I'm fine with, and most of it is set inside the homestead. Most of the drama in this book is stemming from both the coven trying to live together and stay safe, and from the ensuing palaver that occurs when Rise brings human back that do not fit the group. There is some pressure starting to mount up from the outside and the vampire hunters too, so the more the tension increases, the more Rise decides what everyone will do. As much as I have gripes with Rise, I could put up with him because I don't mind an unlikable main character, but I did love the other two vampires. One is an old vamp, or at least he's the oldest physically, and there is a younger woman called Salter who keeps the books and does her own thing basically. They and some of the humans that eventually come into the story are the saving grace characters that made me feel any warmth for the concept of the coven, although I would have loved the story 1000% more if Cypriot wasn't in it. I do think the story needed a Cypriot though, because it's not like Cypriot was badly written, it's just, nope. There was also a reveal at the very end of the book that didn't quite hit home for me, it didn't quite strike as realistic motively wise, but I can't say what that is without being spoilery either. In fact, I can't really say much more without any more spoilers at all, but all in all, I loved a lot about this book. Yeah, for me, there are some things that I feel could do with a tweak, but I can totally see the things I saw as wonky not being a problem for other readers. But for a first book and the first in the series is a great start, and I've read other reviews that say this series keeps getting better. I mean, mostly it was the relationship aspect I didn't gel with here, but there's a potential for a new boy in book 2 who I like a whole lot more, and although Rise does not deserve him, I really look forward to seeing what else this author produces, because this is a really strong first book with some absolutely cracking ideas and descriptive writing. So if anything I've mentioned makes your radar ping, it's definitely worth you checking out. Anyway, have a great time of day that you are in, stay spiffy, and give ears to the notification bell if you feel so inclined. Like dollop. Ah, mew.